But do you feel, I often say to people, choose somebody that you feel like you could get naked with. Because you're going to, you know, so who has the same philosophy as you and kind of just you feel comfortable with. So we just look at what does she need right now, what's happening right now. I walk in and I look at her and let her tell me who she is and what's going on in her head right now and what she's needing physically right now.
Hi ladies and welcome to Bonjour Babies channel. I'm Leslie Abraham. I am the founder of the pre and postnatal Bonjour Baby program. Today I have the honor to interview Ann Fulcher, doula and head of the Hearts and Hands UCSD volunteer doula program. I am so happy to have her on the show. She is a pioneer in the doula world and her experience is invaluable. We talked about how a doula can make a difference in your birth story, questions to ask to make sure you have the right partner along with your family during your birth experience, and what are the differences between midwives and doula. Ann has been a doula for more than 20 years and she has attended more than 900 births. Yes, you heard that right. She is the head of the Hearts and Hands UCSD volunteer doula program since its creation in 2000. Her work includes being a doula and helping other families around her, but she also teaches and trains new doula. All right, ladies, I won't say more and I'll let you dive into it. So welcome to the show, Ann. I am very pleased to have you with us today. So I already did a quick introduction and a general introduction on you and what you do, but okay. I'd like for you to tell us a bit more about your background. So I know you have been a pioneer in the doula world, but could you share with us how you started that career and when you decided to become a doula?
Okay, yeah, thank you for having me. My favorite subject, so I'll tell you everything I can. I wasn't always a doula, but and I didn't grow up thinking I shall become a doula when I grow up, but it's something that you fall into, I guess. So I've got a lot of background before I got influenced when I started working at a breastfeeding organization, actually. So I was working with healthcare people from all over the world who were trying to make change in birthing practices and particularly infant nutrition and feeding practices. So that's kind of where I got started accidentally. And then I became the doula for all my colleagues who were having babies. And then I took training and got certified actually a little bit later. So all told, I've been a doula for about 25, 26 years.
Wow.
And of that time, I've done private work, I've done a lot of volunteering, and about 20 years ago, I became the program manager for a volunteer doula program at the University of California, San Diego, UCSD Medical Center here in San Diego. So that's been my full-time job now for 2 decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
So really a whole bunch of experience you have here.
Yeah.
That's good. And that's really interesting because I believe 25 years ago, were there a lot of doula or how was the field like in that time?
Yeah, it was quite different back then. I was still explaining to everybody what a doula was, how to spell the word, saying, no, it's not an acronym. And now most people who are in the realm of being pregnant themselves or knowing pregnant people or in maternity care absolutely know the word doula. Still a lot of confusion though about actually what is a doula and what a doula is not. So I'm always still clarifying, yes, I'm a childbirth assistant. No, I am not a midwife. That's the biggest question. Is it the same thing as a midwife? And the short answer is absolutely not. A midwife, whether she works at home birth or freestanding birth centers or in a hospital, a midwife is medically trained. She's got lots and lots of years of schooling and experience in caring from a clinical perspective, caring for pregnant families, delivering babies, or as midwives like to say, catching babies. because the mom is the one who delivers her baby,
Yes.
right? So somebody is there, hopefully, to catch. That's a midwife. And of course, most people know what a obstetrician is, a doctor who specializes in obstetrics and maternity care. And then a nurse, we pretty much know what a nurse is too. So I'm none of those medical things, I'm that other. And I'm also not the family member who, usually we do see a woman, a person in labor with somebody that she knows, a familiar family member or close friend supporting her as well.
Yeah.
So doulas came along, and at first people were like, well, why do you need another person in the room? And it turned out that it's as old as time. The idea of a doula is somebody who knows about childbirth. So maybe not your sister or your best friend or your partner who's never seen it, experienced it before. And doulas started taking training to get especially more prepared and more knowledgeable about what they were doing, and it became a paraprofession. I think since the dawn of time, women gravitated to helping each other, and they did it more casually. Now it's become a job, a career for people.
No, that's interesting. You already answered my future question, but like that's very good. And so, where does that come from, the doula? Is it coming from a specific culture, and now we have it in the Western culture, or where did it start?
Yeah, so like I say, I think that in every culture, you can go back in time and look at the artwork and even statuary of depicting childbirth. And there was this person who was, catching the baby, the midwife figure, and then there was another figure sort of supporting and holding this birthing person, and that was the assistant or the apprentice or the doula, even though they didn't call it that.
Yeah.
And the word doula comes from the Greek. A lot of people just sort of quickly say it means like a woman's servant. I can tell you, I went to Greece, and they didn't like us borrowing that word very much because it has a bad connotation.
Interesting.
So now when I go to Greece, I don't tell them that.
Absolutely.
Don't use that word. But it got into the popular terminology here just a few decades ago to mean somebody experienced and trained in childbirth.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that.
Involved even more.
Yeah, no, that's very, very interesting. And that's right, because if you look at even all, the movies, the historical movies where with the, like the queen or whatever having a baby, there is always somebody by her side helping her during the process. So I guess we can guess that it has always existed in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It just wasn't really talked about or defined as well, because of course you had somebody, when somebody was in labor, people would go to help her if they knew how and were interested in that. So it came about, the doula culture that we see now kind of came out of a few decades ago, where women were sort of wanting to advocate more for a bit more choice and a little bit more knowledgeable way of giving birth, not just showing up and doing what they were told. So definitely an advocacy role. And it used to be, when I started, more of a casual thing that people would kind of get pulled into just for whatever reason they were drawn to it. Maybe they wanted to become a midwife or something, and they thought they'd get a bit of experience, or they just were asked by their best friend or somebody to please come and help me, and then they got hooked. And then I think women started sort of training each other and learning from the medical people and the women that they were serving a little bit at a time, and then it sort of blossomed. 25 years ago, you started seeing the organizations starting to pop up more formally to train doulas. And then the whole idea of certifying as a doula started, and we went from there.
Good. So and you say that you are running the Hands and Hearts Volunteer Doula program, if I'm not mistaken on the name of the program, right?
Yeah, actually, Hearts and Hands.
So is there, no, that's fine. Is there a way our audience can find more about that program if there are?
Yeah, so the Hearts and Hands program, the formal name is UCSD Hearts and Hands Volunteer Doula Program. You can find us. We have a Facebook page. We also have a website just called sandiegodoulas.org.
Okay.
Or if you wanted to see a bit more from the, I guess, from the UCSD side of things, the hospitals page, in other words, you could go to pregnancy.ucsd.edu.
Okay,
And,
I'll add the link in the show notes so they'll have it too. So, and do you know if there are other initiatives like that across the country, or is it only in San Diego?
Yeah, we're not the only ones, but it's still pretty rare to have a hospital-based program in general, and particularly one that is all volunteers, quite rare. There have been a few others since I've been doing this. Some still exist, some kind of came and went. It's not an easy thing to sustain in a hospital. There's money, there's politics, there's availability and interest, and over the years, we've grown from a little grassroots effort to quite a big program, pretty well known. And I do get a lot of people asking me, how do you run a doula program? How did you start? And where we are now is not where we started. We started with just 2 or 3 doulas kind of showing up, and now we've gotten all big and formalized about it. And I'm happy to talk to people more about how I've done that.
That's very interesting. How many doulas are volunteering in the program right now?
So we'll tell you right up, we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic as we do this discussion. So we've actually had to stand down a little bit and do just virtual doula work until last Friday we got the go-ahead to come back. But I don't have as many doulas. In general, we have about 50 doulas at any one time, a solid core group of doulas and then more in training. And so some people come and go, they do their training, they work with us for a while, and then they move on because they were using it as a stepping stone to get into private doula work or a career in medicine or something. But on a good day, not COVID, 50 doulas or so right now.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Good. That's very good. I love this initiative, and I wish we could see more and more and more across the country, because definitely for some women it's really needed and it changes their experience. So
correct.
It's a good thing. All right, so let's dive into today's subject. We wanted to talk about the difference between an on-call hospital doula and an at-home doula. So, but before that, because when we think about giving birth, we automatically think about hospital, right? But there are other options that some women might be interested in. So can you talk to us about that? What kind of options do they have today in the US, and where can they give birth?
It varies quite a bit regionally. I'm speaking to you from San Diego. We have quite a vibrant birth culture here. We have quite a number of hospitals that you can choose from. And I do point out to women, please shop around and choose. Don't just go to the nearest hospital, because they're not all the same. But you can go to a hospital to give birth. You can choose to look around and find a freestanding birth center, which is always run by midwives. The birth center, by definition, is run by midwives. And we have about a handful in San Diego, more coming. Some have not been in structurally there for very long, so I won't give you a number, but freestanding birth centers, or you can choose to hire a midwife and have your baby in your own home. So 3 different ways, 3 different places, I should say, to give birth. And some women, the first time around, maybe they think, oh, I should go to a hospital. I don't know, what I need, and I'm a little bit nervous about that. For some people, it's an insurance thing. Their insurance will only cover them at a hospital. What we're seeing more and more is second time around, women said, oh, I like that, okay, but now I know how to do it, I'll do it at home. Or I didn't like that, I'm going to do it differently this time. I did that myself. I had my first child in a hospital and the second one at home. So there's not just one way to do it, and what you do one time might not be what you would do the next time. But so doulas tend to work mostly privately, because there aren't too many volunteer programs like mine. So they're either working directly for the family and going wherever that family is giving birth. So, Leslie, if I was going to be your doula and you wanted to deliver your baby at home, I would go to your home. If you were going to a freestanding birth center, I would be with you at the birth center or at the hospital if that's where you chose. And doulas can, kind of pick and choose, I guess, who they want to have as their clientele. In a volunteer program, we work on call, meaning typically our doulas do not meet the families ahead of time. They just come into the hospital when the family arrives at the hospital. And that sounds funny to people, like, how is that going to work if you've never met each other before? But I can tell you 20 years in, it works really, really well. They don't really care if they haven't met you before at that point. They're just the expertise and the help that you're offering. We are doing virtual work now, though, in this time of this pandemic, and that's been a lovely addition because we are meeting up with people in advance, either physically or just like we're doing now, Zoom meetings and FaceTime.
And so that's an interesting question because, of course, now we are recording that at the time of the pandemic. So our world is kind of upside down for a lot of relationships that we have with our family, our friends. We are using more and more virtual, kind of way to communicate. So did you find that with that pandemic and like introducing virtual sessions, you are able to help more and more women? Did you find like a different way of doing things? How was that for you?
Definitely a different way of doing things. But we found that there's a lot of support that we can do just as you and I are doing now, which is just visually and verbally. Because a big component of what doulas do is to provide emotional support. And it's nice if you can actually put your hand on somebody's shoulder or hold their hand while you're doing that. But if you can't, we're finding that it's actually pretty good too. And there are some upsides we're finding. For example, nurses are reporting that the partners are kind of stepping up more. And I think sometimes when a doula is there, the family members think, oh, she's the professional, I'll move out of her way. And we're always working to say, no, come back, we'll do this together as a team. We don't want to replace you. But if we're not physically in the room, they sometimes are taking on the roles. And we're just sort of in the background whispering to them, give her something to drink, or help her move this way, and kind of coaching them from afar. And it's working.
That's good. I love that. I love that it's helping, partners to be more involved in the process as well.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's fear of, not knowing what to do and, like finding themselves in the way of, because you're the professional. So definitely it helps to bring more confidence to that whole experience and empower the couple as, already a family. So it's beautiful, actually. So. Good things come from that pandemic anyways.
Silver linings. Another one I'll just mention is they're saying that without all the visitors coming to see the new baby, moms are holding their baby skin to skin more, not embarrassed to breastfeed them, because they can do that without their shirt on. Definitely. And we're actually seeing some incidents of better bonding, more breastfeeding, and babies regaining their birth weight sooner. Yeah, that's so another silver lining.
Yes, that's good. We have to focus on that. Definitely. So we already answered what is the difference between a midwife and a doula. You gave us a very good explanation, and it's very different. We have to remember that the midwife is the medical trained part of the birth experience, and the doula is the emotional support part. Correct me if I'm mistaken, but they have both separate role and complementary, right?
Definitely complementary, and there's a little bit of overlap between a midwife or a doctor, and particularly the nurses who tend to spend more time. If we're speaking about a hospital, they spend more time in the room, but they have clinical jobs to do. So sometimes they have to step away from the emotional, close to the woman's face support and check on, what's going on in the other parts, or the machinery, the having to check her vital signs or chart, use the computer to chart the medical information. So their support can't be as consistent, continuous as ours. Yeah. So they appreciate the fact that when they have to go do something else, we're still providing the continuous support. And it is very, very emotional, also very physical a lot of times too. Yeah. So, and informational. We give information about what to expect, what's happening, what to do, what's coming up next a little bit. Heavy on the emotional encouragement kind of support.
Is there a difference between the type of doula that you can have during the birth and the doula that you can have to help you with the first days with your baby?
So I think the word doula was first co-opted or borrowed in terms of helping a woman give birth. Then came postpartum doulas, and they're typically a different person. So a birth doula focuses on the pregnancy and the intrapartum care, the labor and the delivery of the baby. Very intense time in one's life. And then the baby comes, and if the woman is already at home, settles in and tucks in there. If she's delivering at a hospital or a birth center, then comes the time that she has to bundle up the baby and go home and start to settle there, learn how to swaddle and diaper and bathe and feed the baby. And more and more people are aware of the idea that a postpartum doula can help them with that. Yeah. Two different roles, and the reason I say that it's often a different person is if you're on call for women who might go into labor at any second, it's hard to also be already committed to a family whose baby is already at home and they're counting on you being there. You can't suddenly leave and say, I'm sorry, I've got to go help somebody else now. So just scheduling wise, and I will say for a lot of us, we're probably drawn more to one part of the role than the other. For example, I'm a birth doula. That's my jam. That's what I do. I wouldn't be so interested in too much follow-up at home.
And is it a different type of training, or does the doula training cover both?
They're generally two different trainings because they cover a lot and it's hard to do both. If you're a birth doula, you learn about pregnancy, you learn a lot about childbirth, and a little bit about breastfeeding and postpartum care. I think it's the opposite balance. If you're going to be a postpartum doula, I would really encourage you to learn a lot about what happened before you got there. What's childbirth look like? And then ask the woman, what did you go through? Tell me your birth story. How's it been? And then they, of course, learn a lot more about newborn care, postpartum recovery for the birthing person herself. And so a heavier emphasis on what happens next.
Okay, that's interesting to know that it's two different paths, and for the women that are interested, it might be interesting to dig a bit further in the type of training that the doula received to know what is their field, kind of. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Very good. All right, so we talked briefly about on-call hospital doula and at-home doula, but can we maybe dig a bit further? So you said to us on-call doula, it's basically the moment they arrive at the birth center or the hospital. Is the doula usually not always over there, I guess, but they kind of meet the family here and are of support during the birth? And so what's the difference with an at-home doula? What's what the at-home doula is doing exactly?
Yeah, so when I have, for example, private clients, they might be delivering at a birth center or at home or a hospital. I'll keep in touch with them in early labor, just over the phone typically, because there's also the idea that you don't want to too much interrupt the flow. And so too many people, too much talking, too much going on is not conducive to labor really getting going. So regardless, I'm not necessarily with a woman in early labor. I'm kind of keeping track until she gets active and really wants some more help. And then I would go to her home and help her at home. If she is going to be moving along to a birth center or a hospital, I'll help her and her partner understand when's a good time to go to the hospital. That's a big question, is how do we know when to go to the hospital? And then I go with them. For an on-call doula, for example, at my hospital, the reason that we have doulas who are able to make this big commitment is that they can choose the days when they can make the commitment, when it's convenient for their work or school schedule or family schedule. Meaning they would say, okay, I can be on call Wednesday. I've also cleared Thursday in case it goes long. So whoever is coming in and asking for a doula on Wednesday, I will go and be with them.
Okay.
And then she does make the commitment that she's not going to leave until that baby's born. So sometimes it's a couple hours and sometimes it's 30 hours.
Yeah.
And we do commit to staying one doula with one family until the baby is in arms. So we step into a situation that's familiar because there's a lot of things that are common, and also the family is unknown because we've never met them before.
Yeah.
But we just jump right in, and there's some magic that happens. We get to know each other really fast, and we don't bring any baggage or opinions or prior assessment because we didn't know them. So we walked into the room. So we just look at what does she need right now? What's happening right now? Before we step in, we do talk to the doctor or the midwife or the nurse and get a little background information, but I don't even need much of that. I walk in and I look at her and let her tell me who she is and what's going on in her head right now and what she's needing physically right now. So it's quite pure. I think it works really well.
That's good. That's a tough work because you really have to adapt to whatever is going on and get to know her and her partner really fast as well. Right. It's I don't know if it's trickier than being the at-home doula and getting to know the family before, but it's definitely different.
It is very different, and yet it's the same, believe it or not, because in the moment a woman or a family are working to bring a child, they is very similar. The story is similar, and they have such an intense right now need, and you come in with a right now attitude. It helps you be very present in the current moment.
Yeah.
Right. You're not thinking about what I got to do later or what I did this morning. It's like right now, and you get really laser focused on that, and they can feel that and tell that you are fully there for them with nothing else on your mind.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's what they need at that specific time. So that's really good. Yeah, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
All right. So quick question before we wrap this up. So if a family decide to partner with a doula, they want to have a doula as part of the team during the birth experience, when would you recommend them to start seeking for a doula?
I think that they should learn about what a doula is and isn't as soon as they start to think about it, and then shop around. Just like you should shop around for the right place for you to give birth. It's not the same for everybody. Shop around for a doula who you feel you can be intimate with, because it's such an intimate event in your life. A person giving birth, they have medical people there, and hopefully they've chosen well and feel safe and comfortable with the medical people surrounding them. And a doula might be very, very experienced or pretty new in her work or his work. But do you feel, I often say to people, choose somebody that you feel like you could get naked with. Because you're going to, so who has the same philosophy as you and kind of just you feel comfortable with. Ask questions like, what kind of training have you had? Not so important is how many births have you been to, but tell me about the births you've been to, and then let the doula tell a story and see if that feels safe and confident to you. How early? I have people calling me at 40 weeks. I'm due in a few days and I'm looking for a doula, and it might be very hard to find a doula because doulas get booked up, so don't wait that long. On the other hand, I've had people literally almost still holding the wet pea stick. I'm pregnant. So somewhere in the second or third trimester is a good time, I think, to start really getting
Yeah. From what you're saying, it feels like a good time too.
Yeah.
And so, are there any specific questions? So you talked about, the birth experience, and I feel like it's a good thing because you can see if it's aligning with the kind of idea of the birth that you want to have. So definitely, it's a very good question to ask to your doula. But are there any other type of questions? Sorry, you would recommend them to ask to a doula?
Well, before they even talk to a doula, whoever is going to be there, if the birthing person has a partner or a family member who's going to be there as well, make sure that person's on board and understands that someone else will be joining them,
Yeah.
and that they will be well supported as well, not replaced, but supported by that person. And then I think questions you have to do the business side of it. When are you available? What does your work commitment look like? How much is your fee? That sort of thing. But also, how available are you? How many other clients are you going to take around my due date? What's the backup plan? I think a good question is, have you ever worked where I'm giving birth?
Yeah.
Sort of see if they know the environment that you're planning on being in.
I was wondering, because you were talking about the doula's fee, is there like an average fee that doula are charging, or is it changing with, whoever is the doula? Is there like any fixed price?
It's very, very regional. Again, I know in LA, they charge more than most doulas do in San Diego, New York City. It's a huge number, and in smaller towns where there are fewer doulas, and I think the cost of living is just less, quite a bit less too. I know in San Diego, there's a wide range, so I wouldn't want to quote. But again, the highest fee doesn't necessarily equate with the best doula. There are some new doulas who are, young in their career, but old in their spirit.
Yes.
Experienced, who are very, very good. And again, I think the questions shouldn't necessarily be too much involved with how many births have you attended, tell me about your training, are you certified? And those are good questions, but just a chat on, tell me about your favorite birth, or tell me what you typically find yourself doing as a doula at a birth. What can I expect, and how do you feel about the work that you do, and which kinds of births do you like to work with, or something like that gets a little bit more personal. Because it's not clinical work, as we talked about in the beginning. We're not providing clinical services, nursing or medical care, so we don't need a degree in doula work. We need more the heart for it, and an innate, I think, understanding. I think it's good if a doula is more intuitive than she might be analytical. We both have both sides to us. I think doulas tend to be more intuitive, put away the analytical side, because you can't follow a flow chart. Oh, this is how far we are along in labor. You have to look at the person and use your guts. It looks like they need some emotional encouragement, versus they look like they could really benefit from me helping them change positions right now, or pressing on their back this way, or their partner looks like that's who I need to be focusing on right now. They look scared.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, it's more about finding the right person with who you can have that kind of trust relation, more than really like the degrees and the experience.
It's more of a personality fit.
Yeah, I agree with that. For a lot of things, anyway, it's more important than sometimes degrees and experience. Definitely. Nice. It was really, really nice to have that conversation with you. I definitely learned a lot, because actually there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know about doulas, so and that was very educating for myself as well. So I want to thank you again for taking the time to speak with me today. And again, I will put the link in the show notes so people can visit the site and maybe ask some questions to yourself and the other doulas you're working with. And if they have any question, I will forward them to you, so you can always be a source of education for us.
Perfect, please.
It's a very good thing. All right. Thank you very much, Anne, for your time.
Thank you. Yeah. Can I add one more thing?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Just women looking or families looking for resources. If you're comparing hospitals, for example, and I mentioned don't just go to the one that's closest to your house. They're so different. There's in California, there's a website called Cal Hospital Compare.
Okay.
There's also another one that I think might be national called Leapfrog. And you can look up a hospital's cesarean rates, their breastfeeding rates, their episiotomy rates, things like that, because that's really where you do want to shop around too, and realize that there's a lot of different ways that care is being provided. So
Yes.
shop around.
Yeah, it is very different from hospital to hospital and from state to state, definitely. Not speaking about countries, but yeah, it's really something that they have to look for. I agree with you.
Right, right. And we have just been talking about birth in America in this conversation.
Yes.
Elsewhere.
Yeah, no, that's thank you for adding that, because it's a really good really good resources, definitely, to find more answers. All right, thank you, Anne, and I wish you a very pleasant day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.